Welcome to another session of Stelmo's Rants and Raves. I'm Stelmo. Let's jump right in here. I had to do this video here because some things are so predictable, and but I'm not a fly on the wall, so I can't know, or I'm not privy to all of those confidential discussions going on in the background. But here's this headline: Frustrated Trump says Iranian leak is false and issues warning. So, of course, the president's already announced that, there's a peace deal. Yeah, it's a peace deal. And so, uh, what I'm going to do here uh, is read you what President Trump has written here today. The terms that Iran leaked out to the fake news have nothing to do with the terms that we agreed to in writing. What they said, including their weak and pathetic statement on having a deal, bears no relation to the truth. Very dishonest, dishonorable people to deal with. With them, there is no such thing as dealing in good faith. Amazing. Also, their totally rebuffed drone attack last night against Indian ships leaving the Hormuz Strait is totally unacceptable. They better get their act together and fast, President Donald J. Trump. Well, I would kind of disagree with that. It's not they that need to get their act together, Mr. President. I think you need to get your act together because everything you're describing here is exactly what they've been doing the whole time that this regime has been in power. They're going to lie. They're going to obfuscate. Their religion tells them it's quite fine to lie to get to what you have to do. And they believe that it's their job to take over the world and make Islam the one and only religion. They believe that they can give the infidels two choices. One, you can convert to Islam and live happily ever after as a Muslim, or you can uh, put yourself in a position where you need mortuary services, okay? And that's what they believe. They've always believed that. They're going to continue to believe that. And even if you may have on Sunday a signing ceremony, and even if the markets are going to go up and everything, you're dealing with a regime that needs to be taken out. Don't forget the promise you made to the Iranian people. Because if you enter into a peace agreement with this regime, it's my contention that you clearly have blood on your hands, Mr. President, a lot of blood, because you were the one who came out there and told the people to take to the streets and take back their government. And I watched 2CTV at the time, and I saw the size of the demonstrations prior to your coming out and saying that, and then after you said it, and it was a night and day difference. Once you come out and implored the people to take to the streets, the size of these crowds were massive, massive, clearly over 1 million people. And tens of thousands of them died, Mr. President. You said that, hey, if they start killing people, we'll have your back. We're going to fix that. Well, now you're negotiating with them and you're apparently coming to an agreement that they're never going to live by. In the meantime, they continue to kill Iranian dissidents. Just, I don't know, it was 2, 3 days ago, we've seen actual pictures in the paper of people who were recently sent to the mortician. And they will not partake in any more protests. That's for sure. And that's why they're doing it. These people have the only way that they're able to rule is through fear. And you somehow think that you have these superior negotiating skills and they're going to enter into a long-term agreement with you. No, Mr. President, that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is with this one issue, you are going to ruin your complete legacy. All the good you did is going to come to a grinding halt with this. It really is. Because, you put this war on hold, allegedly. And of course, you called it a ceasefire, but it wasn't a ceasefire because we all know what a ceasefire is. And we understand those words. They have definitions. And I know in government, they always like to change the definition of the words to comport to whatever nonsense they're trying to spew out. And here they kept saying, well, it's a peace, or excuse me, it's a truce, whatever, a ceasefire agreement, but we're still firing. I'm not going to say we fired each and every day, but I believe each and every day one of the sides fired something. It was a fake ceasefire. And now we have this, I'm going to call it a fake peace deal. Because, by the president's own admission, the hierarchy of the Iranian government is in disarray. I still, the one thing that has me completely baffled throughout this whole operation is why they did not and why they have not gotten weapons to the Iranian people. I know the president has claimed it at one point that they did get some. Well, I don't know where those weapons are. They may well be being used and we're just not hearing it. I suppose that's possible. But I also know that since they lifted the internet ban and people are able to use broadband in order to send and receive video clips. We have plenty of video clips doing by Iranians. And while they're talking, they're holding up written instruments asking for weapons. Please send us weapons. These people know what they need to do. You can't send, like you did, unarmed people into the streets against an armed regime that doesn't care about those people. The way you need to look at this is like this. The population of Iran is made up of approximately 4 to 5% of these Muslims. It's a small percentage of the actual population. And it's that small percentage that's ruling by force. And keep in mind, they believe that the infidel has to either convert or be sent to the mortician. And they've sent quite a few people to the morticians. The morticians are working overtime. And apparently, our president thinks that he has a great deal with them. Now, exactly which one agreement it is, we're not even sure because they're saying one thing, he's saying another thing. And when that happens, you know what? Here's the bottom line. There's no meeting of the minds. Nope, none at all. And there's not going to be. Because if the Iranians agree to a deal, it's only to buy time to consolidate once again, oppress the people, kill more people. And it's a shame. I was the president, you know, right from the very beginning, from the time you came down that elevator, I supported your candidacy. I was ecstatic in your first term. I mean, you were the first politician to go in there and actually do the things that he promised to do during the election campaign. And the few things you didn't get done, we were all able to see it wasn't for lack of trying on your behalf, but rather it was the leftist loons. It always is, isn't it? And so, I don't know. I'm just frustrated. I know a lot of people died apparently needlessly, especially if this regime is allowed to stay into office. You're playing a game. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. Even yesterday, and in your thing, you're talking about how they were sending drones out towards the stripping in the Strait of Hormuz. This isn't going to change. It's not going to change. And one time they're going to get lucky and they're going to hit one of these ships in a crucial point where it's going to sink and it's going to create more havoc and problems. In the meantime, look, Mr. President, I know you're under pressure because of inflation. I know that the powers that be are trying to all play it down, but the inflation we've seen from this war so far is only a tiny percentage of what ultimately is going to come. come forward, moving forward. Because whenever the price of energy goes up, it just takes a while. The suppliers, uh, once they realize how much more they're paying, they got to uh, pass that along to the retailers, and then the retailers need to raise their prices. And it's just a long, convoluted process, and it goes on, and it's continuing even now as we speak. And let me say, and I'll repeat this and forever, I guess, but what is the textbook definition of inflation? It's an increase in the money supply. That's simple. Prices going up is a result of inflation. It is not the actual inflation. And if you look at it in those terms, you can see why we're stuck with inflation moving forward, because now, ever since the Biden term, let's go back to the Biden term and Janet Yellen. Janet Yellen found out early in her tenure that what she needed to do is concentrate on short-term bonds, because investors were willing to buy the short-term bonds with far less problems than the long-term bonds. You know, I don't remember exactly what the interest rate was at that point in time, but let's say it's 5%, and if inflation is 3%, you're only getting 2% on your money, and you're locked in for 30 years, and you don't know if it does go up to 4, 5, 6, 7%, then you're going to be losing money. So she started selling all of these short-term bonds. And of course, the Trump team has to continue this. They have to continue it, because otherwise, well, let's look at it this way. The interest on our national debt is already reaching an insurmountable level, and it's only going to go up from here. And when you have to start borrowing more than $1 trillion just to pay the interest, you got serious problems. And it's only going to get more exasperated from here, because uh, there has been zero attempt at cutting spending in Congress. Nothing. I mean, yeah, they talk, and maybe they'll cut a little bit here, but when they cut a little bit here, then they expand it 4 times as much somewhere else. And 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 it's like, let's take now the Trump administration. They're looking for another reconciliation bill of $350 billion, and we don't have those $350 billion. So that's a third of $1 trillion. So just with this one bill, assuming they can get it through, and I think that there's going to be a lot of problems with that, but it adds a third of $1 trillion more to the right up front to the national debt. And uh, we've been, knock on wood, fairly lucky when it comes to national disasters. We really haven't had that serious of a hurricane in the last year or two. Uh, we have been spared so far with having major earthquake activity or even volcanic activity. So uh, if that changes and there's a major event that's going to cost billions and billions of dollars, where does that money come from? More supplemental bills and more and more spending. And we don't have the money, and people are no longer willing to lend to us in the amount that we need to borrow. So I'm convinced that the Treasury and the Fed they're holding more of our debt than they're readily willing to admit. And the reason is because they know what happens if that information were to become public. But we're in a doom loop as it is. And And it just seems to me, I heard the president when he said that he thought that the Iranians should have to pay for all of the damage done to their neighbors. I agree with that. I also think they need to pay for this whole operation. And the way that they need to pay for it is for us to go in there and take over their oil fields and oil wells and all of the shipping ports and infrastructure involved with it. And we, we need, I believe, to take 50% of the funds and giving 50% to the Iranian people. And we need to make sure that it actually goes to the Iranian people and not their proxies. No more money for Hamas, no more money for Hezbollah, no more money for the Houthis. And you'll see how fast these organizations die out when their protagonist over there in Iran is unable to financially support them and to provide them weapons because the Iranians were no doubt secreting a good percentage of the missiles and stuff that Hezbollah and Hamas and stuff had. So, uh, the president had such an opportunity here to leave a lasting legacy for him, and instead he's decided to ruin his legacy because this isn't going to play out well. This will not play out well. It's not over. And uh, even if the president wants to try to scare them into submission, it's not going to work, Mr. President. Look at all the things you did. You gave up going to your son's wedding to have an emergency meeting with your Security Council. For what? Nothing was accomplished. There for over 4 or 5 days. It seems every time I turned around, there was uh, another meeting at the White House deciding what to do. Everything was changing, although nothing on the ground was changing. So, Mr. President, do the right thing. Finish the war. Get it done as soon as possible. So that truly, once the war is completed, then we can actually hope and pray that we can get some of this inflationary pressures taken off. We can get the price of fuel back down where it belongs. Uh, but I think it's going to be a long and convoluted process. And the fact that we're going to be doing so when it will be obvious that we really did not win this war. Mr. President, you know, I'm going to close now, but let me remind you of something. You told us, you went before the American people, and you told us all that unconditional surrender was the only viable outcome. It was then and it is now, but you're willing to accept less because all the pressure is being put on you because of the increase in inflation. Well, it's going to get far worse, Mr. President. So you need to stop this. And perhaps if you announce to the world that we are taking over those oil fields and oil wells, well, then perhaps and only perhaps then would we see a market improvement to our economy. But with that, I mean, I always hope for the best. I hope I can come on here and say that I am wrong and that the president really knew what he was doing. But I think in this case, he's under so much pressure to get it ended. And the only way that this is going to successfully end, Mr. President, is to finish it with victory. Anything less than victory is going to be a defeat, and the American people are going to pay for it. And you're a lame duck. They can't hold that against you, but they could hold it against the party moving forward. And that terrifies me because the Democrat Socialist Party of America is not. And with that, y'all have a great day. Stay safe. It's a crazy world out there, and it gets crazier by the day. Thank you. Bye-bye. Anybody have any questions, make sure you jot them down below along with any comments. I'd love to hear what y'all think about this because it certainly has me perplexed, and I'm really disappointed with the president in this regard. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.